On peut aussi prendre des questions en français, il n'y a pas de problème. S'il y avait des problèmes de langue, je pourrais faire la traduction. Une question en français, une question en anglais, si cela était nécessaire. Est-ce que vous avez des questions par rapport aux présentations que nous avons vues cet après-midi? Oui.
Yes, I have a question for Matt Adams. Actually, it's related to the difference you made between place and position. And it's just to understand a little better. I have another question also for understanding. You talked about the Wi-Fi dynamic mapping in difference, making the difference between this one and the GPS. And I suppose, obviously, place and position is there involved. I would like to understand a little bit better how this Wi-Fi dynamic mapping works, because I didn't understand quite well, technically and experiencing. I mean.
Yeah, so I didn't explain it particularly well. I think it's probably why that is. First of all, just to say that what I was trying to do was to reflect on the affordances of a technical platform and how a technical platform can provide cultural and artistic opportunities, but also the ways in which we can detour existing platforms and media or think about them in different ways. So, in terms of your question itself, the way it works is that when the computer turns itself on in this position, it looks for every Wi-Fi access point it can see. It doesn't need to connect to it. It just looks for that list that you see when your Wi-Fi comes up, and it allocates all of those. It grabs all of those and it says, okay, now I'm here. As I get up and walk in this direction, at one point or another, I am going to lose one of the ones I can see, or I'm going to pick up one that I didn't see. It will then say, oh, that is now another location. And in the beginning, the map has two nodes joined by a line, here and next door. What happens is, when you do that with hundreds of devices, or even a couple of dozen of devices, for a few dozen hours, a spring graph is gradually created, where the maps of those Wi-Fi access points form into triangles and ever more denser mapping. So you then end up with a map that would extend from here several kilometres in every direction, where if I cycle for 5 kilometres, it will more or less see the same configuration, the same constellation of Wi-Fi access points day by day. And so therefore, if I make a recording at one location, someone who comes later can find that recording through that constellation of Wi-Fi access points. What that means is that there is no absolute location, and that location is fluid as Wi-Fi routers are on or off, or visible or not visible. All of the chaos of interference that you get around Wi-Fi is present. So you get a kind of hazy form of
you lose horizon. You lose the horizon a little bit, no? The vision of the horizon, because you're not positioned. I'm not sure. You're lost with no horizon. That's what I mean.
It's not so much being lost. It's just that the only position you have is relative to where you were.
Yes.
Yes. So it cannot tell you how to go north or how to find somewhere nearby. There is it's a completely abstracted map. So ultimately, if I pulled up a map of say when we did this in London, you will see thousands of nodes joined. You can take that, and the scientists we work with took that and mapped that onto a map of London, and you can then go to a certain position, take a GPS reading, and take a Wi-Fi fingerprint reading, and go, are they close or not close? In fact, they were closer than we ever expected, because you assume that this thing is so chaotic, it will never do that. But in fact, as the data points grow and grow and grow, the map gets a greater and greater level of granularity, and in fact, you can start to model it. But within the application itself, it's doing nothing, none of that whatsoever. It has no idea where the horizon is north, south, nothing.
Yeah, I have a question for it's maybe a very simple question, maybe not, but I'm thinking about all the work you showed, but in particular the kind of trajectory that began with the France-German border, and the screaming, the yelling piece. Would you describe the visualization that you create as a map? Does that term map mean something important to you, or you called it a medium for generating memory? So I wonder if you could talk about the distinction.
I think that's an interesting point, because from the beginning, several people told to me why Masaki don't put map inside the scene, because map is very much, how can you say, power. So somehow map was a secret object in this stage. It's very much a powerful object. Actually, GPS itself was made by American Army. It's a weapon, a powerful weapon. But I really want to use this technology upside down, very personal
so what we've realised is that for anyone else to use them would almost be impossible. You know, they're not written, they're not clean code. They're often written by collaborative teams, dropping sections in, and they're always incredibly narrow. So that cycling project, it was developed for the Nokia N800. The N800 was an internet tablet just before smartphones arrived. It was very exciting. It had a touch screen and you could access the internet using wireless, but it had no phone bit built into it. 6 months after it came out, the iPhone arrived and it was instantly jumping. No one has ever talked about Nokia N800 ever again. And so it only runs on that. And so it's one of our problems is that, you know, at the moment when we still do writer's work, we did it just this summer when the Tour de France came to the UK. We did it in Cambridge, and we're still using Nokia N800s. It's like, you can't get the batteries. The ones that we have to just throw them in the bin. We can't even buy them on eBay anymore. So these things are, they rapidly degrade. It's not out of any lack of willingness to share. It's just the practicality of what anyone would do.
Other questions?
I'm curious to know more about the Canada cognitive theory. Will it be something open to the world, or it will be very light?
No, it will be open to the world. It's just a question of how many app stores we can get Apple to approve it in. But yes, it will be in the App Store, available to anyone, anywhere in the world.
And because this psychological profiling background, how do you know like that? Because it feels that real life plus game interaction really touch on a very intimate part of the person, like from your analysis also of like how the player is dealing with the situation, or even your examples of like, you know, when you're like you're willing to meet someone through a device versus real life, it's really the intimate part of the psychology where you really make your serious decision, and it's very intimate. So when it comes to like profiling like psychological system, then like you speak about that, so how you model like that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had a presentation that was 5 minutes longer than the time I was given, so I had to kind of run over that. But it's essentially, it's partly a satirical work about how our data is being scraped and manipulated. So, you know, what I can guarantee you is that the software we are building is considerably less sophisticated than the National Security Agency software, Facebook software, Apple software, etc., etc., etc. So I'm here in case anyone in this room is under any illusion that your online interactions are not being scraped and profiled. Let me reassure you, yes they are. I can't tell you how or to what level of sophistication, but they are. So this is a work that is partly to do with how our data is being taken and manipulated and used back against us. And in order to do that, we are building a system that works to some degree in terms of how it psychologically profiles you. But I don't know what level of experience you have around psychological profiling, but that whole field is deeply dubious, right? The very idea that there are extroverts and there are introverts, all of these kinds of conceptions within psychological profiling are very suspect. And in fact, the big corporate players will typically now use behavioural profiling. They don't really care who you are, they just want to know whether if they put the beer next to the nappies in a supermarket, they'll get men buying beer when they go in to pick up nappies on their way home from work. Those are, etc., etc. That's in fact the state of the art. Is to look at those questions. So in some sense, we're trying to have our cake and eat it. We're trying to make a work that uses some of these systems of profiling and comments on them at the same time. evaluation of how white Australia had behaved around their Aboriginal history. All the museums in Australia suddenly thought, oh shit, we need an Aboriginal area. And they went out to build wings, whole wings of museums were built on Aboriginal culture. And of course they had to decide how to address Aboriginal culture in that space. And they had a typical museological mindset, which is we'll need a canoe, we should have a spear, let's get some paintings, we could build a small village, and so on. And the younger generation of Aboriginal people I was dealing with were like, this is insane. Our culture has no relevance, has no interest in a canoe. You know, this is like representing, you know, Europe by displaying a car. It's like, it's, you know, a canoe is how you travel. It's like, this is, our culture is oral and mobile and about songs. And so we met to see if there was a way of using mobile technology as a way of re-representing their culture in a new way. But as you can imagine, that is a very complex and very, very divisive idea among Aboriginal peoples as to whether that is also an appropriate form of intervention. So, you know, I think you're right that there is a profound change taking place. I think it's also partly to do with the things that you were mentioning, which is to do with the ad hoc kind of quality. There's something about the mobile devices are bringing where there's a sense. Yeah, absolutely. I read some data the other day that was saying that, you know, the enormous rise in the last minute bookings of almost everything, that something like 30% of hotel rooms in the UK are booked on the day, or something like that. I may be getting that wrong, but it was a statistic where I was like, that can't be right. But apparently it's really, really common, and that's to do with that idea that you can act spontaneously, and you know, we don't yet know where that may lead.
I've already asked one, but I want to ask one different question. Curious what first or just but the one thing I was wondering about, in terms of the impasse that you were mentioning around like moving ahead on the question of narrative, do you find that there's like I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but maybe like a generational thing? Like I think of some of my students who are in the game studies at Concordia, these young guys who've been brought up on non-linear ways of experiencing narrative through the internet, and I wonder if there's like a design kind of barrier that's more about kind of previous experience in terms of what we carry forward as new possibilities.
I think there's, let's start with academia. Initially, the biggest point of contention was more political and financial, in the sense that here we have disciplines like media studies and literature and cinema studies that said, well, you know, these are just forms of narrative, we can take them under our wing and we can study games in this department or under media study and so on. There was kind of battle, especially between the Scandinavians and later continental Europe and UK and Australian cultural studies and media studies scholars. That became quite a clash. So it came to know narratology and mythology debate as if that conversation was about whether games are games or games are narratives. And that thing went on for quite a while, and it was, I mean, didn't yield a lot of good work out of it aside from argument. And a lot of talking at cross purposes, just talking about different genres of games, right? Tetris doesn't have a narrative, so then narratives and games don't exist. That kind of thing. Then today we're in a situation where, although there's still a lot of interest in narrative, I think there's a general consensus that we don't have a strong framework or model or a strong monograph that we can refer to, and a lot of conferences and journals reject papers based on narrative just because that's something that's old hat. It's not fashionable. We've already dealt with. There was this very uncomfortable debate. Let's put it behind us. But the actual issue hasn't been solved. So I think more than a generational thing, it has a political and kind of financial history to it, which is still affecting it today. And people just don't want to write their own big statements or big claims there. And in industry, I think more than a generational thing. Similarly, it's the kind of people that are working in this area. If you came out of film or literature or had aspirations to go into film or literature and didn't manage to do so successfully, and you just the games, then you want to, you know, be that story creator, be that writer, and just do it in this medium. Which I'm going to be really rude and say that a lot of those situations end up with not very interesting artifacts. I won't mention names, I guess. have games which are not great games, like with not great game mechanics, just excuses for interaction. Interaction which simply executes a potential, a possible into a thing, rather than there being a lot of possible emergent narrative choices. And I think that's where it starts.